Hello everyone, I am Charul Phoria, clinical psychologist. I welcome you all to the course of Mental Health and Well-being. Today I'll be focusing on module 11, stress management strategy. In this module today we'll be covering lecture 5, building a personalized stress management routine. So, stress is very subjective in nature, meaning that it significantly varies from person to person in terms of what causes it, how important it is to a person, and how they'll respond to it. So, there is no universal stressor or response that a person can experience. What one individual perceives as overwhelming might be different for the other person. Let's take an example of two students who might be preparing for an exam, right? So, one student might prefer to be in isolation. They might want to be in the room, study on their own, minimize the amount of distractions that are there in the environment, where they might even not want to talk to other people or just switch off their mobile so that they're simply able to concentrate and not get distracted with other things. So, similarly, there might be someone else, some other student who might be able to perform or whose preference might be to be in the social setting where they're able to revise, they're able to study together out loud, where the environment of study around them is more chaotic in nature or even more lively rather than subdued. So, in this way, the way one person thrives is different from how the other person is thriving. Their needs are different. Whatever way they cope with things, how they manage to perform, what their preferences are, they are different from one another in nature. They manage exam stress in a different manner, which works for them. It they're able to take care of their own needs as well as be consistent with the demand in that way. So this helps us understand why personalized approaches are more effective than one size fits all approach. Generic strategies like meditation, yoga, just taking a break in between, it may resonate with some people, but if they don't align with the need of an individual, they don't have any positive impact. Or if it doesn't align with the individual's personality, then it might not lead to anything positive for a person. If strategies are tailored as per the person's need, as per the demand, it allows for routine that is more sustainable in nature and relevant to a specific stressor that a person is experiencing, as well as it provides the relief to a person. Similarly, personalization also supports a sense of autonomy in an individual. When people are involved in choosing how they respond to stress rather than being told what to do, leads to more positive outcome in the long run. At the same time, it provides the person a sense of control over their own actions, as well as there is more accountability and responsibility on a person that way. Let's understand stressor. What exactly are stressors? So, stressors are the specific situations, events, or even the thoughts that person can get that can trigger a stress response in the body and mind. Recognizing the stressors is a first step and a critical one in learning how to manage it more effectively in the long run. So, tracking stress through tools like stress diary can be helpful. At the same time, there can be mobile tracking apps where a person is able to focus more on where there is variation in their emotion, where there is variation in their thoughts, so that they are able to recognize what exactly the triggers are. By noting down the time, situation, the emotional response, as well as the physical symptoms that a person is experiencing, they are able to recognize if there's any pattern to it, if there is one trigger that is having impact on regular basis, or is it different. So once you are able to recognize the pattern by focusing on the situation, your emotional, your behavioral responses, it becomes easier for you to see where and when you need to manage it in an effective manner. So let's discuss about the type of stressors. So stressors can be of two types. They are external in nature, they are internal. So external can be things that are not on you, that are coming from the outside environment. Like for example, if there is expectation from the family or the pressure about performing to certain level, or there is heavy load, or the deadlines are coming up. So these are your external in nature. Now internal will be where you are thinking that I'm not good enough, I might not be able to do anything, I'm always messing everything up, nothing is ever working out whenever I'm doing something. So negative self talk, which is mostly internal in nature. Now, the type of stressors other than that can be the conflict or the arguments. If you are trying to explain something to your friend or at some point to your professor, they are not willing to understand your point, which is leading to arguments or conflict with others or family members as well. So these are all external. As soon as some other person gets involved, the demand is different. You don't have half of the control over the situation anymore. So, more internal can be when you're putting pressure. Your expectations from your own self are unrealistic. Your professors, your friends, your family members, they don't have any particular expectation from you. They want you to do your best. That's it. But you are setting a certain level of bar while you're not evaluating whether that bar is realistic given the time you have, given the energy you'll need to invest. So it's more about your own expectations, demands that are unrealistic in nature. Now, external can be more financial as well, where there is debt, there is no job security, the expenses are increasing, but you're not able to meet that. Now, at the same time, when it comes to external, there can be many major life changes that you have. You have had a breakup, for example, you have lost a loved one, right? You have migrated from one place to another. Like, for example, if you're going to college, you're shifting from your city, you're having difficulty adapting to the environment. The culture is different, the personality, the thought process, the food is different. So, these are all external stresses that you have to face when going to a new place, where you have to adapt around it. When it comes to internal, it can be you imagining the worst case scenario. That if for example, if a person is thinking, if I don't get 8 CPI, then I am a failure. So it's like the worst case scenario, or I'm not able to perform. So it's like all or none. Either I'm getting this thing, if I'm not getting this thing, then I'm a failure. It's an all or none principle you're working on. So moving on. So, what kind of coping styles a person can utilize in order to deal with the stress? So, every person has different coping styles. One is emotion focused, one is problem focused, and one is avoidance. So, what exactly is emotional focused coping? In this, the goal is to manage the emotional distress and regulate the emotion that a person is experiencing. Like, for example, it can be done by meditation, it can be done by relaxation. You can vent out to your friend where you're letting out the emotions or just calming yourself down on your own, where you're able to just regulate it. That is emotion focused coping style. Now, what is problem focused? So, in problem focused, you address the source of the stress. You try to make a particular structured way where you're able to plan things, you're able to deal with it. For example, in this problem focus, you'll make a plan step by step. What needs to be done? What are the possible consequences or alternatives I have? What is the best alternative? What are the steps I need to take? What is the outcome going to be? How do I deal with the outcome? This is one way. The other can be problem focused when you're seeking someone else's help. You're asking them, you're asking their opinion, you're asking what do they think about the particular situation. So that helps. At the same time, where you're breaking things into small, small steps. Now, the third is avoidance. Avoidance can be used, it is widely used. Like, for example, if you end up scrolling on your phone, right, or you just end up watching something. So, it's more or less where you're trying to escape or distract yourself from the stress. So, realistically, in the short term, it can work, but it doesn't work in the long run because you're just distracting yourself. You're not managing or dealing with it. Like if you're binge watching shows in order to just avoid the situation, that doesn't help in the long run because the problem is still there. You have to deal with it. For 3-4 days, you might avoid, but it's still going to be there. So, avoidance might feel good in the moment, but it is often delayed or it also worsens the stress that you experience. Developing awareness and shifting more towards the problem focused or emotion focused approach in the long run can lead to better outcome or better result for you. At the same time, it's really important to also reflect what are the things you can do when you're feeling stress. What are the methods that I'm utilizing are not helping me out and might impact in the long run. So once you do it, once you try to cope, once you cope with things, it is really important to evaluate how that went, what exactly happened, so that you can add or deduct according to the need from your coping. So what are the different kind of coping preferences? So everyone has different ways of unwinding themselves, and that's okay. Some people are more able to do things when it comes to physical activities by exercising or walking or just shaking off stress, where they're running, where they're dancing, while others might find peace in the stillness, where they're calm, where they're maybe reading something, they're on their own environment. They're simply taking a bath where they're able to just relax themselves. It's not active in nature, it's more passive in nature. They're just simply listening to music. The same goes for being around people. Some people, whenever they are trying to explore the preferences or what makes them feel calm, some people might want to have an alone time. They might not want to be around a lot of people. They might want to introspect and just try to calm themselves down. Similarly, there might be some people whose preference is through social connection, where they're able to talk to different people about it. Once they are able to talk about it, they might feel more calm. At the same time, some people might focus more on journaling, right? They might want to journal it. In some way, it is coming out. They might focus on craft, they might focus on singing or anything creative or art for that matter. Now, some people might want a quick fix. It's mainly you're scrolling on your phone, eating something. But realistically, it's not a long term sustaining activity that you can rely on because it's a very for a short while it gives you relief, but after a point it's still there. So having an awareness of your time and energy helps as well. Do you lean on quick relief strategies or do you rely on long lasting strategies? So it's really important to explore what kind of coping preference you will have as per your lifestyle, as per your needs, as per your own personality and your interest area. So that in the long term, you're able to sustain that coping, which gives you a better outcome rather than trying multiple things which doesn't match your personality and your lifestyle. So, creating a personalized stress management plan, building personal stress relief plan. So, It emphasizes that having a structured layer of support system rather than relying on one single thing to calm yourself down or reduce the stress, it is really important to have multiple story structured system. So on a daily basis, daily habit, it the small things that builds up or that makes up the foundation, like small actions like mindful breathing, journaling, going for a quick 5-10 minutes walk, can be very helpful in dealing with the stress. So these are the daily habits that you can incorporate. But on a weekly level, this could be time off from screen. You can make up time that during a week, for example, for an hour or 2 hours, it will be screen free, no screen time you'll be focusing on. You can spend more time in nature. You can give yourself more personal space where you're not focusing on goal oriented or work oriented things. You're giving yourself free time to actually relax, do your things slowly, focus more on the hobbies. So, on a weekly level, these are the kind of things you can do. For intense moments, a crisis protocol is important. A simple step by step strategy for what to do when your emotions are so heightened, when you're feeling very overwhelmed. Think of it like a personal emergency plan where you're taking a step back. For example, if you have gotten into a conflict with the person, right? Then all of a sudden you're feeling overwhelmed. You're not able to deal with the situation at that time. Instantly, you're not able to respond. So you try to take a step back. You tell the person, I'll get back to you. I'll talk to you later. You try to take a step back, step away from the situation. Try to calm yourself down and then think about it. Then you, if you want to, you call someone, then you call and discuss. If you're able to process it on your own and then you're able to talk to the person, then you go back to the situation and try to talk to the person once you're calm. Finally, stressor shifts with time, right? So it's not always single thing that is stressing you out for a very long time. As situations are changing, your priorities are shifting, the stressors start shifting as well. So it's really important, one, when you're able to deal, that it's really important to reflect and analyze that how you dealt with the situations after few months. How much was it like that worked for you? What were the things that didn't work out for you that you need to change or that you need to alter? So it helps you grow, it helps you progress. At the same time, as your needs and the demands are changing, you're also adapting according to that, not just doing the same repetitive thing that is not working out for you. So you're able to get out of that loop. So, setting realistic goals. So, it's really important to set realistic goals. So, it helps you prevent burnout, it encourages progress or growth over perfection. At the same time, it helps you build the self trust as well as control and accountability from your side. While if you think about it, big goals can be very exciting. It sounds nice, but it can make you feel overwhelmed. You might be overburdened also. When it gets too much, it might lead to procrastination, or even after a point, you might end up quitting it completely. So, in that way, the smaller goal is more doable. It builds momentum, it helps you feel a sense of accomplishment that you have done something on your own. So, this approach, when it comes to short term or smaller goals, this approach is more about progress, more about growth orientation rather than the perfectionism. For example, if you're starting to study, right? You're motivated, you have thought today I'm going to study, I'm very much concentrated, I'm able to. So rather than sitting for 4 hours straight, if you have not studied for last 2 weeks, immediately you're studying for 4 hours straight, you'll get exhausted. You won't have motivation to continue the study after a day or two. For 1 or 2 weeks, again, you will simply stop studying. So instead of doing that, it is important to focus for a short duration. You can start for 20-25 minutes per day, so that you're able to slowly build up the habit. Today you're doing for 25 minutes, tomorrow you're doing for 25 minutes or 30 minutes. Then gradually you're building yourself. So in this way, you're getting into a habit of studying also without making yourself get exhausted in the long term. So be smart. So what exactly is SMART? So vague goals increases stress and decrease follow through because they leave too much open ended, and at the same time they are undefined in nature. So the SMART framework provides clarity, structure, as well as accountability to an individual, all of which reduces the amount of mental load that you might experience when the goals are more vague in nature. So, for example, if you decide that I want to take better care of myself, now the thing is, it is too vague. It can also include having better diet, having more social life, not focusing that much on work, focusing more on physical activity as well. It could be n number of things. So it's very vague in nature. When it's more defined, it might be that I want to start journaling for 10 minutes where I'm able to vent out whatever I'm feeling at least at least 3 times in a week before I go to bed. So it's more defined, it's very clear in nature. In this way, it is more measurable also. You'll be able to track the progress, how much you're able to. It's like 3 times in a week for 10 minutes before you go to bed. So you're able to actually evaluate also. It is time bound as well. It is connected to what your needs are, what your goal is. Let's give an example. First, if we focus on the specific and clear and well defined goals, what exactly do you want to do? Instead of exercise, you focus on go for a walk for 20 minutes daily. When it comes to measurable, how will you know it's done? 3 times a week for 10 minutes. How do you know that achievable? It's more realistic in nature. Can you realistically fit this into your current routine or current lifestyle that you have? If 1 hour is too much, then you start from 15 minutes. That 15 minutes today, I'll start focusing on relaxing myself. So it is achievable. It is as per your routine. You're not overburdening yourself in that way. Now you focus on whether it is relevant or not. Why does it matter to you? So it could be because of the personal goal that you have, personal well-being if you are focusing on. Like for example, the goal is 10 minutes of relaxation daily, so that I am able to learn how to calm myself down. So it is as per your need. You have time that you can focus on, and it is relevant to the current situation that you're in. Now, last is time bound. So whether you're doing it before bed, whether it is every Saturday or Sunday you'll be doing, whether you'll be doing it once in 2 weeks during a particular time. So when you focus on the SMART goals, SMART, then they're more specific and goal oriented. You have more clear direction where you are going, what outcome you are expecting out of it, and it is more realistic. So it gives you a long term growth. At the same time, you are able to sustain it in the long run. Now, what exactly is situational modification? So the brain forms habit through repetition and the associations that we have. So there is one thing called cue routine reward loop. So the cue is a trigger, a time, location that is there, what feeling you're having, or any thought you're having at that time. For example, brushing your teeth. So the routine is the actual habit or behavior that you're engaging in. So with brushing my teeth, after that, I'll be focusing on 2 minutes of meditation. The reward is the benefit that you're getting out of it. That after you're engaging in 2 minutes meditation, you're able to feel more calm, your thoughts become more silent, you're able to sleep better. So there is a cue that is a part of your normal day-to-day routine. You're adding one activity to the routine. At the same time, it is leading to the reward for you. So if you continue to do it on a regular basis, this loop becomes more automatic, and the more it is repeated, that is how the habit is formed neurologically. So willpower isn't the driving force, the repetition is. So in that, the second is the habit stacking. So what exactly it is? So it is a science-based strategy. Instead of trying to make time for activities on a regular basis, you're attaching a new habit to the already habit that you're engaging in, something that you're already doing. So for example, after pouring your coffee, you're adding that you are going to write 3 things that you're grateful for during the day. So every day if you're drinking coffee, after that you're adding this activity. So after you're getting dressed for bed, you're stretching for 5 minutes, that is new activity you're adding. So it gets associated with each other. It's not you have to make up time, it's in the already routine that you have arranged for yourself, you're adding one more activity which is going to take a short duration. So it helps you recall also, it helps you not forget the activity that you're doing. At the same time, it makes you get used to it all. Now, the tracking habit, it is to build momentum and so that you're able to stay motivated over time. So in this, you can focus on the principles, that monthly checklist that you have, whether what activity you had planned during the week or during the month, what exactly you were able to do, what were the activities you were not able to do, what was the reason for that. So in this way, you're able to get the visual proof, you're able to note down your own progress. At the same time, whatever didn't work out for you, you're able to adapt according to the need and disregard it if it's not important anymore, or add something new. So the tracking helps you see what exactly you're doing right as per your need, what exactly you need to change as per your need. So what are the common kind of errors or distortions that you think you can face? So many people give up on building new habits because their expectation is that it should be perfect in nature from the start. From the get-go, it should be perfect. There should be no fault. When they slip once or twice, they feel like they have failed, but realistically, that's not true. So it's really important to normalize the setback. If you're adding something new, if you're doing something new, having that clarity from starting that there are going to be hurdles in between, it won't be a smooth journey, will help you better plan, have more realistic outlook towards things rather than just focusing on the perfectionism. Setbacks, they're part of learning, right? Even people with strong routines tend to have days off. So it's not always possible to have the same outcome from the same pattern. The key isn't to avoid ever slipping, it is to bounce back and quickly learn from it. It is really important when you're thinking about bouncing back. It is really important to reflect what exactly went wrong, what got in the way, what didn't work out. Questioning those things, trying to reflect on it, is really important to make a plan again and accordingly focus on new goals or focusing on bettering the outcome that you want. So this is a sample of goal-based routine. Morning, midday, evening. So morning, if on a goal-based you are thinking that I'll be focusing on deep breathing for 2 minutes after waking up. So midday you might be adding that I'll be taking in half an hour screen break immediately after lunch so that I'm able to relax a little bit and calm myself down. Evening you will be focusing on the reflective journaling after walking for 10 minutes, where you are able to reflect what were the short term goals that were there for the day, What were the things I was able to do? What were the things I was not able to do? What were the problems that I came across? So, accordingly, for the next day, you're able to prepare yourself. So, now understanding burnout. So, when the stress is prolonged for a long duration, where the coping is not done on the long term basis, the stress keeps on accumulating, which in turn can lead to burnout. So, burnout is a syndrome which is a result from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by three dimensions: feeling of energy depletion or exhaustion, where the person is feeling depleted, the energy level is low, increase in mental distance from one's job, they are not feeling like doing it. There might be more procrastination or feeling of negativity related to the work that you need to do. So there is a reduced professional efficacy from the person's side. So burnout refers specifically to phenomena in the occupational context and should not be applied to describe experiences in other areas of life. So burnout is a state of emotional, in simple words, it is a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by chronic and unmanaged stress. It affects how you think, how you feel, and how you behave. It is a chronic condition, not just feeling stressed out for the day. It's the result of long term, unaddressed stress, especially when you feel that you can't keep up or you can't recover from it. So, what are the signs of burnout? So, it has three main components: the emotional exhaustion, the cynicism or detachment, reduced productivity. So, emotional exhaustion is when you're consistently feeling tired. You are emotionally feeling flat. You are not able to respond on an emotional level, or you're feeling very overwhelmed. Now, cynicism or detachment is when you socially isolate yourself. You're snapping easily at other people, right? You might be feeling numb also at times or very negative. Now, third is reduced productivity. So, where the simple tasks that you were capable or you are capable of doing or you used to do on a regular basis, they start overwhelming you. At the same time, you are having difficulty in concentrating at work. You are facing hurdle there. At the same time, you feel you're constantly behind. You're not able to achieve even a single task that you are setting your mind to. Now, self care becomes really important so that you don't get into the burnout stage. So, you're able to deal with things on a regular basis. First and foremost, it is really important to focus on self care. So, the basic foundation is to reframe self care. Most of the time, if you focus, whenever people are talking about self care, they'll be like, you're being more selfish, you're just focusing about your own self, right? So, the reframing the mindset around self care is really important. So, it's not about you being selfish, or it's not even a luxury. It is an essential for physical health, emotional balance, as well as mental clarity of a person. So, it's not a luxury or somebody being selfish. It's a need or it's an essential thing that you need to do for your own sake to function well on a regular basis. So, without it, we are more vulnerable to illnesses, anxiety, burnout, and disconnection. So, types of self care that are there are physical self care, which is the base of it. So, lack of sleep, dehydration, or skipping meals may seem small, but they directly impacts the immune system of the body. It impacts your mood as well. So, if you're engaging in physical activity, if it leads to secretion of dopamine neurotransmitters, it makes you feel more alert, it makes you feel motivated. So, that is really important. Emotional self care. It helps you process stress where you're not ignoring it, where you're trying to recognize it, you're being more aware about it, and giving yourself time where you're able to let it out. You're able to deal with your emotions and manage it in a healthy way. Now, the third is social self care, where you're taking care of your needs by staying connected to people who help you grow, who help you make feel better rather than who undermine you, where you're able to set healthy boundaries with people who drain you out. Now, what are the time management strategies? This is also important if you want to manage your stress on a regular basis. So, first is time blocking. So, assigning a specific block of time in your calendar for specific task or specific type of work. It ensures that there is no multitasking happening. At the same time, you are prioritizing the right things. So, for example, in a calendar, you are color coding the blocks. So, from 9 to 10, if you are doing activity, you are writing, you are checking mails. From 10 to 12, you are focusing on the project work. So, you're assigning a block of time to a particular activity. From 12 to 1, you're doing your lunch. From 1 to 2, you have a meeting. So, a particular time is allotted and you're aware about it. There is no multitasking. It is not haphazard in nature. So, from 2 to 3, you're doing some admin related tasks that you need to do. So, from 3 to 30 to 4, you're giving yourself a buffer time. So, this is time blocking. Now, the second technique is Pomodoro. So, in this, you work in focused intervals, typically for 25 minutes, followed by 5 minutes break. After 4 sessions, you take a longer break. So, for example, it boosts focus, it reduces the burnout by balancing intensity with the rest. So, example of Pomodoro can be for 25 minutes, you're writing the report or you're writing an assignment. Then you're taking 5 minutes gap in between, you're stretching yourself, you're just standing, taking 5 minutes walk there only. Then again, you're doing 25 minutes of research work that you need to do. And then again, you're taking 5 minutes of water break, you're going out and drinking water and then coming back. So this is an example of Pomodoro activity. Now, the third that is really important that can be done is reflect, adjust, and delegate. So, regularly reviewing after you have implemented the goals in your routine is really important so that you're able to adapt your routine and make some improvement as per the need. Whenever there is a task that can be delegated to someone else who is sharing the responsibility with you, then delegate it. For example, if you're doing a group project, so in group project you have one task, somebody else has another task. So you're delegating among yourselves rather than one person doing every single thing. Now, aligning energy with your routine. So show that managing energy is more effective than managing minutes. So it is really important that you need to identify when you are more alert. So many people study more during the evening, many people study in the early morning. So having an awareness when you are more alert helps you align the activities or the task for the routine. When do you think your energy level is very low? It is really important to recognize that so that whenever the energy level is low, that time you can invest for self-care or just relaxing yourself rather than doing some task that is more extensive in or intensive in nature. So, at the same time, use a chart to map your own natural rhythm. Encourage to build a schedule around your own pattern rather than doing what you should do without taking care of your own energy into consideration. So, coming to the conclusion, stress is inevitable. There is no individual anywhere who will not experience stress in any form at some point or the other. But chronic stress is not. It is not inevitable. It can be avoided if the stress is managed on a regular basis, timely. The difference lies in whether you have a plan from starting. So start small when it comes to the management of stress, but stay consistent with it rather than doing it for a long duration in one day and completely stopping it the next day. Now that you have all the tools that we have discussed, the time management, the relaxation, the self care, coping styles, at the same time, taking into consideration your own preferences of managing the stress. Start simple. Choose one habit or technique that you can apply this week and then try to reflect on it and then move on to the next one. Always keep in mind that self care is not a luxury, it's a requirement, it's a necessity so that you are able to function on a daily basis as well and maintain your health. These are the few references that you can go through, that you can look up, that will give you more clarity about things. Thank you.